Hey everyone, I'm Stupid Fat Hobbit, and I'd like to take some time to talk about the Ravenous Earth Acid Oppressor that I've been playing over the past couple days in the Forgotten Gods expansion. This is an Oppressor, meaning it's a Necromancer plus Oathkeeper, Oathkeeper being the new class, and it's entirely focused around doing acid damage and just being relatively tanky and good AoE, good single target, just an overall solid build. This is the build that I've been maining for the past couple days, and it's, compared to a lot of the builds that I've played in the past, it's very enjoyable, very easy to start for new players. And as you can see, it's capable of face tanking a lot of relatively difficult stuff while taking minimal damage. For a caster, it is an exceptionally tanky build. So what is this build? It is a Ravenous Earth build. You've got Ravenous Earth, this is your main skill, and what it is primarily focused around, along with the second two portions. The first portion you want the absolute max rank, the second portion as high as reasonably possible. The third portion, I just, 1 or 2 points in here. This only procs off kill. It's important to note, it's basically an on-death effect. So if you're just fighting a single difficult target, like Alchemos, like I was just fighting, it's not really going to help you out that much. You want a flat resist reduction source from elsewhere. We use Manticore, we'll get to that in a minute or so. Spectral Binding, lots of health. OA, pretty self-explanatory. 1 point in this for the attack speed debuff on retaliation, which is essentially how it works. Mark of Torment, this is a really nice skill. It allows you to mitigate a lot of damage from a single target for about 5 seconds with a 13-second recharge here. This will let you, between rotating between this and your potion, it lets you face tank a lot of the most difficult content in the game. We have cleared Ultimate Korvac with this. We've been farming the endgame dungeons, getting our Nemesis rep up. Handled the Undead Nemesis very easily. He's a large hitbox with very slow movement, so Ravenous Earth, being a kind of a shotgun stationary attack, tends to be really strong against those kinds of bosses. And we're still getting the reps up for the other ones. It's worth noting that unlike some of the other guides that I've made, this is not the complete endgame setup for this. I'm trying to get this video out sooner because this is a very strong starting build for people just getting into Grim Dawn, especially Forgotten Gods expansion or those looking for a fresh start. With basically no leveling gear whatsoever, it still does very good damage and is very tanky, and it scales very nicely in the endgame. There is no set that's mandatory for it like some other builds. You can just level with rares and slowly throw in random legendaries with acid damage and health and resist as you get them. So finishing talking about the skills real quick. Under Oathkeeper, we've got Vire's Might, movement skill, coupled with Tectonic Shift, just again 1 point for the extra range. This is our main movement skill. As you can see, I've got a second movement skill on my R key over here. This is the new Forgotten Gods Glyph of Ron's Might. It gives me basically a second charge, shield charge, for those of you from PoE, and lets me move, a little bit more. There's some better ones you can get than this, but they're all dropped. This just happens to be the best one I got. I believe the 15-meter range teleport is arguably the best one, even though it has a slightly lower recharge. It's got the most range, and it's pretty much instant. So yeah, those are your movement skills. So going back to Summon Guardian of Empyrean, these guys we've scaled up all the way because with this mutator it converts their, some of their damage to acid. The Vid we're not really scaling, unfortunately, but they've been effective enough that I'm happy leaving them at the rank they are, coupled with the resist reduction, which also adds flat acid, like AoE aura around them as periodic damage in a 4.8 meter radius. This combined with your devotions are your primary sources of resist reduction, meaning Rumor and Manticore. You can get roughly, I think adds up to be about 80-90%. I haven't actually added all up resist reduction, but it's been more than adequate for just about everything I've encountered in the game so far. Other skills. Presence of Virtue, the passive under Oathkeeper. This should be pretty self-explanatory. Health, OA, you're going to get this on any Oathkeeper build. Path of the Three, again, pretty obvious. Ascension, the second part. It's worth noting that this build doesn't actually take a lot of skills in total, which leaves up a lot of points free to just dump in your secondary skills. Like, I usually wouldn't have this so high rank. This doesn't need to be 13, this doesn't need to be 13. This doesn't need to be 13. But this isn't quite our endgame gear setup as well. We're eventually going to get the Murmur's Kiss belt. I haven't found it yet, which converts 50% of our fire to acid damage. And with the 44 fire to acid over here, we're converting almost all of our fire to acid. This allows us to make our judgment almost purely acid, and it's just going to help augment our damage. It's the one last thing I'm missing from the build, but since it needs the belt, I haven't bothered putting the points on that yet. But yeah, that's why some of my secondary skills are so high rank right now. It's worth noting that the Murmur's Kiss belt, coupled with Path of the Three, opens up a lot of other interesting build options, for example, such as an Acid Poison Demolitionist, which is a character or a class that's mostly fire damage, and by converting all of his stuff into acid/poison, it gives you quite a number of interesting build options. Alright, going into devotions, we are poison/acid. We've got Behemoth/Tainted Eruption. This is bound to our Guardians because they're always in melee, so we are not always in melee. I mean, I'm often face-tanking bosses just for maximizing Ravenous Earth shotgun DPS, but oftentimes, when we're just clearing, we're going to have the Guardians kind of running off a little and just hitting shit, and you want, your PBAoE to be around something that's always in melee. Behemoth, health, good regen. They added armor to this constellation, which makes it better than it was back in AOM when I last played, and it's a lot stronger now. Rumor/Murmur, and Manticore are your two main resist reductions. You've also got some increased damage on both these constellations. 3-point Torch should be also, again, pretty obvious when you look at the stats and once you realize that you've already got the affinity for it by getting Abomination. DA reduction on Scorpion. As far as the other binds go, I have Rumor on Ravenous Earth right now, and Acid Spray on Judgment, and this has been working out pretty well. Scorpion Stings on Fire Smite. It's again worth noting that with the Murmur's Kiss, some interesting devotion options open up since you're again converting almost all your fire to acid poison. Fisher, for example, is almost purely acid poison. However, Magi is an expensive constellation in terms of points, 7 versus only 3 given back. And this build's already pretty tight as is, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to fit that in. That's something I will definitely experiment with when I get the belt though. Part of the reason this build is so tight right now is because we've got Solemn Watcher. I'm a big fan of this constellation right now. As far as easily accessible, always on defensive constellations, it's essentially as good as it gets. We've got armor here, armor and pierce resist, which is the hardest resist to get for all classes, more or less. DA over here, and 5% DA over here. This is really good, and this is part of why I have 2.7k DA right now. We're in like endgame-ish gear, but not completely maxed. We'll get to it in a second. And having that high DA is partly what allows me to take so little damage when just face-taking things. As you can see, Alchemos has 0% chance to crit me. And I think that covers it for the devotions. Oak Lanes, just for the affinity. Spent a long time playing with this. I don't know if this is quite 100% optimal, but for getting the constellations that I wanted to get, I was pretty happy. I didn't like having to drop Hawk, but I was getting enough OA elsewhere that it was worth it. With Ascension up, we're sitting at 3.4k OA, which is quite a bit. We see quite a nice number of juicy crits, and as you saw with the Alchemist kill, the single target is more than adequate. Yeah, that covers it for devotions, I believe. Onto gear. So right now we're using... Well, let's talk about the MIs first. First of all, Bone Spike. This drops from Trog Blood Mages in the mountain depths, like where you go to rescue that dude's sister where she's being gnawed on by that, insect type thing. And there's a shrine in the area too. Yeah, that one. It's here. You kill the Trog Blood Mages, and they have a chance to drop this Bone Spike. This used to be a really rare drop for those of you thinking like, oh god, like I played back in AOM, I remember spending hours for farming one. They buffed the drop rate, don't worry, you're good. This reduces the cooldown by 0.4 seconds, and it also gives 2 seconds duration. And coupled with the CDR that we get from Path of the Three, a little extra bonus CDR on top of our offhand, which gives 15. I could get a better roll on that too. We can easily summon 2 Ravenous Earths at a time. Without the Bone Spike, it's pretty much impossible to have 2 up at the same time because by the time the first one gets up, they both maybe fire one shot together before the first one goes away. But this allows you to have 2 up constantly. However, your damage is still entirely. If we look, Vit. If I take this off, you can see your damage is almost entirely Vit and poison by default. Wait, sorry. Well, I mean, yeah, okay, it did work because I unequipped. I unequipped my offhand. That's what I meant to show. Is that by taking off the offhand, the base is Vit and poison. And talking about the offhand, this converts the Vit to acid, which also converts Vitality Decay to poison. However, there isn't any natural Vitality Decay on this. It's just acid and poison. So, or Vit and poison, sorry, which gets converted to acid and poison. So that's what allows us to just scale just the acid and poison, which synergizes nicely with these guys doing acid, debuffing acid. I was a little concerned before I started this build that the lack of abilities would be a problem, because so much of this game is revolved around proccing things and stacking a bunch of different abilities. But it turns out that having a 26 Ravenous Earth and having all these synergies come together and the amount of resist debuff turned out to be more than adequate. And as I said, I have no problems clearing the entire game. We've done every single quest in the game. My quest log is completely empty. Yeah, we're in the middle of farming Nemesis. As far as super bosses go, I think we could handle some of the easier ones. It's a relatively tanky character, but it's not super tanky. The thing is, a lot of the super bosses can hit really, really hard and have a lot of OA and DA debuffs, so you generally either want to have a build that's completely face tanking them or kiting them. And this build can face tank most things, but when it comes to the really, really, really tanky stuff, it starts to fall a little short. So I haven't tested it against any super bosses yet, but given how it's done against Nemesis and whatnot, it's feeling pretty promising. Finishing off the rest of the gear, right now we've got the Dark One's Mantle. This set is really good for the build. It is not mandatory, meaning that as you're leveling up, especially if you're a new player, you can easily substitute in, just random gear with acid/poison damage, health, and good resists, DA, OA, and whatnot. But this is definitely the endgame set you're going to want to go for. This drops from the trash leading up to Lokar. I don't have a video guide on Lokar specifically, but if you look at my Aether Death Knight video, the last quarter of it or so is dedicated to Lokar. This set, yeah, as you can see, it's pretty solid. Supports Acid, Poison, Vit, and Ravenous Earth. It has a pretty nice proc as well. Very nice set bonuses. More armor, helping give us. Well, I think I'm being debuffed right now in armor because usually it's like 2k. Yeah, increases armor by negative 20%. I was like, that number seemed a bit low. And the rest of the pieces right now are Mythical Leg Plates of Valor. This belt is crafted from the new faction, so this can be gotten on your first character. Mark of Divinity. This is a really good item, especially for hardcore. It gives you a nice safety net / circuit breaker if you happen to take a little bit too much damage too quickly. It gives you 3 seconds of invulnerability to react and decide what to do. Serenity, the best relic for pretty much most builds in hardcore, honestly, by far, has a similar proc to the Mark, which makes me, consider I might drop the Mark at some point, but I have to pick a metal I'm really happy with, and honestly, I think most metals in this game are kind of crap, and there's nothing wrong with having them both either way, because even individually, they're still really strong items. Mythical Peerless Eye of Baranath, again, just really good for old builds. I haven't, again, fully min-maxed the gear for this yet. I just kind of had the Dark One set. We found these Mythical Stone Treaders and the Leg Plates of Valor, and we've got just Incorruptible rings right now to round things out. I've got some pretty okay rings right here. This one on the right's fairly nice. Got some nice OA and DA. It's a little low level. Otherwise, those OA and DA values would be much higher. So you can see it requires 67, not like 84 or 94. And this Oleron's Wrath, I basically, I'm not using the Fizz or anything. It's just I needed a bit more Pierce. If you don't have good resist rings like this, you're going to have to sacrifice some of the augments I have. As you can see, I've got 150 health, 16 DA augs on a lot of my armor, and that's what gives me, part of what helps gives me such good HP and such good DA. And but yeah, you always want to, this is why you never want to use the double rare option on your filter, or ever be filtering out rare rings in general, because incorruptible rings are really good, and most rare rings in this game, legendary rings in this game are not that great. Sometimes there's some good resist reduction ring for your build, but most of the time the amount of resist you can get on a ring means you're better off using those slots for rares and then using that, to max out your components a bit more to get a really nice HP total and high DA. I don't have the endgame components in this build yet because I wanted to wait till, I had crafted / acquired almost all the endgame stuff before I spent all the Ugdom Bloom on that, because the amount of Ugdom Bloom it can take to max out a character can literally be like, a full fucking day of farming. So I want to get I want to be 100% certain of what every piece is going to be before I fully commit to that. Like, I'd like to try to farm a pair of rare pants. I've been farming Soleo hoping for one. No luck yet to replace these. I should probably farm Dreeg. No. One of the two as well. Yeah, all three of them drop some pretty rare pants. I have to remember which one is which. And as I said, the Murmur's Kiss is the most significant piece of gear which I'm missing from the endgame set that you're going to want to look for when completely maxing out this build. When you do get that, you fully spec into the fire portion of Judgment, and you have a pure acid poison Judgment. You can max this out, and it's good. It should be pretty nice for just helping clear things out and just supplement damage on bosses. I believe that covers it for the endgame stuff, as well as the devotions and the skills. So on to leveling this build. We already talked about the MIs. You want to grab, the Bone Spike and the Leaf Mane Horn as soon as you go through the Mountain Deeps and in the Act 5 Barrowholm-ish area where all the Fuzzy Wuzzies are. And, just get basic ones immediately, and you can farm better ones in Ultimate later. You don't need to farm good rolls early on. The base damage of this build is more than enough to keep things going without having top rolls on your weapons. And, that's really it. Other than that, you just use generic leveling gear and fill everything out with just good HP resist pieces, stuff like, if you've got the Epics, Legendaries, Runic Bracers, Shroud of Illusion, the Phaeton Mask, all that good stuff. Lokar set if you happen to have acquired it already. And Shoot for the Dark One set is your endgame set. This is from the trash up to Lokar. It can be pretty rippy in there, so make sure you're pretty set up before you go into there and don't rush into it. I've lost a level 100 character with 20k HP in that trash before, so it's a little sketchy, but it's worth the risk. Just make sure you're ready for it. You don't have to do Lokar in order to farm this set. You can just kill it's the Riftsworn Adherents that drop it throughout there. Yeah, one last note on leveling. The Oathkeeper's most juicy stuff is mostly on the right side of the tree, so when you're leveling it, basically you're going to max out Skeletons first, use that so you actually get Ravenous Earth, pull your points out of Skeletons. I actually didn't drop Skeletons I was 40 or 50 or so. I really didn't drop them until they really felt almost useless. Basically specking this as you see it, then you want to go pretty deep Oathkeeper pretty fast after you've gotten your Ravenous Earth to get all this stuff right here, the extra range of Virus Might. Your Guardians are the biggest thing you're going to get out of here, and Path of the Three, and then get the HP when you feel like you need it, and so on, and the OA and so on when you've got the extra points. It's really comfortable to level because you don't actually feel completely strapped for points like a lot of builds, so you got some freedom on where to spend things as soon as you got your Ravenous Earth filled out. I believe that covers everything. My stream is Twitch TV SF Hobbit. Good luck out there, guys.